Hi everyone, it's Dr. D. Terrence Foster, and here I am checking in with you. About 2 weeks ago I did a video about the coronavirus, and the purpose of that video was just to see how much we could probably just have a conversation and talk to each other and see how we could help each other. And hopefully that made a difference. So what I'm doing this time is just to check in with you and see where you are and what you're doing. Now, of course, the coronavirus itself, the whole status of it hasn't changed significantly. We could see some areas where there are improvements in some countries, some cities, some state, but of course there's still other places where things are getting worse and potentially will get worse. We know one of the things that has been more significant to some of us is not only that are we losing lives. We see tens of thousands have died, over 2 million people have been infected by the virus. But the lives that have been lost now, they're no longer people who we're not familiar with, or they're in some countries or some far place that we probably have never heard about. And even though we may care, it doesn't mean that much to us. Now we're losing people that we know. Some of us are losing family members, or we know a friend who has lost someone significant. So right now it's front and center, and we're all experiencing the horrible part of this pandemic. So, you know, of course what that has resulted in is that more people are more depressed, more people are more saddened about this, and people are just trying to figure out still what to do. So we're going to still go back over some of the things that we talked about before, and I'm hoping that again we will just at the end of this let me know what you're doing and how things are working out for you. I know the last time we talked about finances, which is always one of those big things that is so important to get people in the right frame of mind. We know that some of you were out of work, some of you were laid off, some of you just didn't know what was going to be the next step in terms of your employment. Now, I mentioned that, of course, one of the things that you should have done is to, of course, call all the people that you owe, and so that that would be your mortgage company, if you have a car note, or your landlord. All these people that you owe, you should have called them by now. If you haven't, you still have time to do that, because the last thing you want to happen is for them to think that you are ignoring your responsibility to pay your bill. Now, we also talk about, you know, the possibility of getting deferment, and we mentioned that that is of course not a payment. So if you are in a position where you could pay some of your debt, make sure that you pay those debts, because in the end you're still going to be responsible for them. One thing that I didn't emphasize in the last time was the need for a budget. This is a time when everyone should have a budget, because it's so crucial to make sure that we're saving and we're knowing where every dime that we're spending, where it's going to. Because if we don't, then it's, you know, we're literally, whether in other words, we just cannot live the way we used to live, because we're going to be living outside of our means, which is not a good thing. So if you didn't have a budget and you didn't get one, or you've never had one, this is indeed a perfect time for you to have a budget. Now, in addition to having a budget, of course, if you've resolved, or at least get some hold on to what is happening with the people that you owe, the next thing is, some of you may have had by now some sort of unemployment benefit, or had some form of stipend or supplement from, depending on the country you're in, and hopefully you've been able to make use of that. Now, one of the things that I must say that you shouldn't be doing if you have this option, some people have a retirement plan, and with this pandemic there are certain regulations that have been passed which allows you to withdraw money from your retirement fund without penalty. Now, there are always exceptions to every case. Everyone's circumstances is different. But if you can avoid, by all means, do not do that. It's definitely not a good time for anyone to withdraw from their retirement plan. The other thing that some people tend to do without realizing it is that they will have a credit card, and they'll tend to max out their credit card, while at the same time they have a savings account which they're not using, where in one hand the credit card is requiring them to pay 16 or 20+% interest, while they're getting less than 0.5% interest on their saving. it's always good to have some cash in reserve, but sometimes you have to balance both situation, and you know, don't be so far out there that you're maxing out your credit card and you're trying to save something while in fact you're actually losing money that way. So you don't want to do that. All right. The other thing is that I much mentioned in all of this, of course, your employers, some of them, well, we all have access to some sort of funds, but that is still something that is ongoing, and the government, at least in the United States, is trying to work to make sure that more funds are available. And so, you know, still be patient, still work at maintaining some of the things that we talk about, or working on those things. Now, the other part that I talked about was, you know, your mental ability to deal with all of these things. I mentioned that it's good to call a friend, a family member, maybe someone you haven't talked to in a while, because what this does in a lot of times is that it gives you an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life, because they may be going through exactly what you're going through, and by you communicating with them, you are actually helping them, while at the same time you're helping yourself. So it makes sense to do that. Some of us are religious, some are not. If you're religious and you have a pastor or you have a church group, some people are having prayer group, prayer meeting, all these things, they're doing it virtually, you know, or they're online, or they're doing this. You could join something like that. It's very helpful in times like this. If you're not religious, you know, maybe you have other way of connecting with your inner self. Some people believe in connecting with the universe. Some people believe in just meditating. All of this is important things to do to just help you get through this, because you know what, there's a lot of people out there who are very anxious. Some are depressed, some are feeling hopeless, and although the situation is very significant, what everybody's going through now, there is hope. So if you hold on to some of these things, or if you make the transition where you don't just stay there by yourself, but you find other ways to tap into, or other things to tap into, then you're making headway. You're not literally being overwhelmed by all the difficulties that you're going through. So bear those things in mind. The other things I said that would be important is that you have to do something. Some of us get sometimes so paralyzed by our circumstances, where we say, okay, I'm going to do this, but somehow you start procrastinating. I'll tell you about reading. Some people will go through an entire year without reading a book. You know, read something. Maybe read something about improving your immune system. We all need strong immune system in this pandemic. Read about nutrition. That's something you could do. Another thing I mentioned, which hopefully some of you got a chance to do, is to try to explore things, explore some of the talents you have. Some of you probably could write a poem, write a short story, or maybe a song, a lyrics of a song. You may not know how to play a piano or play the guitar, but you could definitely put some words together. Maybe you could rap, or whatever it is. Do something, you know, because doing something, you know, one of the things that some people get so stuck and just starting that they never do anything. But a lot of time what happens when you start something is that you find that you start on a journey, in a path, and doors literally opens up for you, where you're getting into other areas, you're seeing other things, you're seeing other people come into your life to help you and guide you to a path that, or a direction which you had no idea that you would end up. So it's so important that a key thing is that you must start. You must do these things, because if you don't do it, then you never know where you're going to end up or where your talent is going to take you. Of course, I mentioned before that if you're interested in starting a new career, whatever that might be, maybe you want to leave your job, find a different job. You know, this is a perfect time to do some research and trying to get as much information about that new thing, or that new idea, that new career, because you do have the time. Some of you do have it, and this of course is a perfect time for you to try to utilize the time that you have. You know, one thing I've learned over the years, and I keep saying this, that the best opportunity comes to those of us who are most prepared. And how do we get prepared? We keep doing things. We keep finding ways. It doesn't matter what is happening. You shouldn't be at an airport or in your home and say, I'm bored, I can't find anything. There is always something to do. You know, you shouldn't be just, I know it's hard to be inside the house, it's hard to be locked up, but make sure that you keep doing something, because in the end, it's going to make a difference. So you're saying, okay, Foster, what have you done? Well, some of you may know that I've started a YouTube channel. I probably have done, maybe now this might be about my 6th video, so some of these videos will be posted on it, and I'm going to continue on this journey. And I'm not looking at this stage for perfection. I'm just putting stuff out there because and I'm trying to do it. This is not professionally done or anything, so I'm just putting stuff out there. So what am I saying? You could put stuff out there. Don't worry about how you sound, what other people think. Just do something. We don't know. I don't know where this is going to take me, but I'm in front of the camera now. And I'm going to enjoy this moment, and I'm going to do other things. Plus, I'm doing other things. I'm working on some other project, including books. So I've got all those things. So I'm saying that to you to encourage you and hope to let you know that, hey, don't worry about the perfection part of it. Just do something. Now, there's one thing and I hopefully, you guys will let me know in the comment section what you've been doing, how you coming on. Maybe one day I'll meet some of you and you say, Foster or Doc, whatever you call me, this is what I did and this is what I'm doing, and it is making a difference in my life. I hope one day I'll be able to see one or two of you, even one person. That would mean a lot to me. Now, one thing I must say, when I do these videos, most of the time I make them generic because I know YouTube is everywhere. But there's one thing I have to do. I have to talk about Jamaica a little bit, because some of you may or may not know that I'm a Jamaican. That's where I was born. And I just want to say to all my Jamaicans, that are there, and I know the country is going through a lot, but one thing I want you to know, because, well, first thing, sometimes when you're in a situation, you don't know, and the people around you, you don't know how valuable they are. You don't appreciate them for what they do. That could be a relationship. It could a relationship which is personal. It could be a professional relationship, a business relationship, whatever it is. Sometimes we take things for granted. But let me say this to you from just one Jamaican looking in who is here in the United States. You have a leadership right now who cares about you. I mean, the Prime Minister, Holness and Dr. Tufton and their team, I'm sure they're working very hard. And I'm sure that Dr. Phillips and the People's National Party are also so deeply involved in this, because at the end of the day, this is not a JLP or a PNP thing. This is a Jamaican thing. And it's so important that you appreciate what your leaders are doing, because one thing that I could tell you they're doing, they're putting lives ahead of economic benefit, or life ahead of all these other things that are secondary. For them, it's your safety, your well-being, and that is priceless. So appreciate what they're doing, because it's not easy what they're doing. And and how do you help them? Make sure that you really follow their instruction, because Jamaica is at a very critical point in this pandemic, and it's going to take everybody who is a Jamaican to make it work. So I want you to bear that in mind. I could tell you a little bit. I'm in Georgia, and just to do this briefly, in about, say, 2 months ago, we had about maybe 20 people dying, and maybe about a couple hundred people with the virus. And at that time we were closing school. Now we have over 20,000 people who have been infected, and about 800 plus people have died. And we're still having about 700-800 people, 600 to 800 people who are being infected daily. And what are we getting to do? We're getting to the plan now is to open up the state again. Now think about that. One thing I could say about what the Jamaican government is doing is that I know they care. I can't tell you that the people in Georgia don't care, but one thing I could tell you as a medical doctor and a clinician, I just don't understand what they're doing or the why behind it. And that's something that maybe one day I will, but right now I don't. So the bottom line is appreciate what your leaders are doing. Make sure you follow what they do. And for those people who are wherever you are, you know, and you have to go back to work, and you know you need to be out there working, let me just remind you of some of the things that you know you need to do. I've said this in previous video. Everyone should and must wear a mask. Doesn't matter whether you have symptom or you have no symptom. Make sure you maintain a safe distance, or what is called a social distance, at least 6 feet or more if you can. You know, we're always advising you to wash your hands and wash them for at least 20 seconds or more. Then the other thing we always say, you know, in addition to wash your hand, make sure that you know you don't use your hands when it's dirty to touch your face. You avoid that. You know, in some instance you could wear gloves, you know, but you know that's a double-edged sword. I've done another video on how to protect yourself and how to prevent the virus. Make sure you check those videos out. And you know, another thing is that disinfect after you know you're in an area. Disinfect frequently. Make sure that the areas that that are potentially infected are disinfected. You know, the other thing that I want to say is this. You know, when you think about all those things where you're, you know, the mask, the gloves, the social distance, you know, not touching your face, etc. But there's also one thing. What can you do to help the government as you're governed, wherever you are? You know, you talk about testing and contact tracing. If you know or you believe that you're infected, then let the authorities know so that at least they could test you. And isolate yourself. You know, don't run and hide, don't go away, don't disappear, or don't pretend like nothing is wrong with you. Make sure that they know, because in the end, the longer you spread this out, the more devastating this is going to be for all of us. So you take those things in mind. Testing is important, but the government, no government can test everyone in their country. So they need to know who are potentially the ones that are infected, because that way they could make that tracing and see, well, where did you go? Who were you with? And hopefully they could stop the virus from spreading. And that's the way it's going to be done. So if you know that you're potentially positive or you potentially may have come in contact, isolate yourself, but let the authorities know. In the end, it will save potentially a lot of lives. There's a lot of things happening, and some of you, most of you, want this to be over with and done with, but it's not going to go away right now. So the best thing we could do is protect ourselves. And for those of you who are at the front line, who all this return to work is going to be impacting most significantly, make sure that you wear your mask, and in most cases a face shield. I don't know how you're going to massage someone from 6 feet or cut and hear from 6 feet, but you know, use your common sense. Not everything that somebody say you have to do, you should do. Be careful. We're in very serious time. Things will get better. I honestly believe that, but we, every one of us, have a part to play. So I want to say, make sure that you understand and make sure that you're an important part of this equation. And don't just leave it up to everyone and act like you don't care. Don't pretend like it doesn't apply to you. It applies to all of us. So I'm going to stop here, because this video, if I could continue talking almost forever. But I'm going to stop here and say, if you find this video helpful, you know, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. There are more videos that are out there. I just did another one in pain management and in the coronavirus, so that's out there too. So subscribe to this, and leave in the comment section anything you'd like me to talk about, and we're going to be talking a lot about this and other things. As I said, this is a new journey for me, but I'm not going to stop here after coronavirus is done. I'm going to be talking a lot, so let me hear from you. God bless you all. And in Jamaica they say, Tana your yard. So do that, and wherever you are, if you don't understand what Tana your yard means, stay home, be safe. God bless you all. Thank you.